Hello, hello, comic lovers. January's comics, pretty decent haul. Nice little surprise, which I think I knew was coming because I saw it advertised in the back of one of my other comics, but still nice to see it come through nonetheless. But let me not ramble on like I tend to do, and let's just get right into the action. First up, I went back and got the first issue of this series, which I missed out on for some reason. I think because I didn't know what it was all about, and they just put it in my bin when it first came out, and I didn't realize it was related to some of my favorite franchises. And yeah, I've got everyone since, but I was missing number one, so I finally was able to find the first issue of Void Rivals. So now I have the first 6 issues of this series as it continues to unfold. So in this first issue, we get to see how it all started. So Derek, the Agorian, we see him crash land on this unknown planet, and he survives, and his little wrist computer thing, whatever, is like, come on, you got to get up, bro, and I'll find you a med pack, we'll get you all sorted out, and we'll see if we can get you off this planet. Maybe the wreckage of your ship is salvageable, whatever. So he's coming to, he's sorting himself out, and he's like, I wonder if that Zertonian that was chasing me also crash landed on this planet. Soon enough, as he's exploring the wreckage of his spaceship, she shows up on the scene and they start fighting. They end up kind of saving each other's life during this process, though, and end up at least gaining a little bit of a ceasefire. And he finds out her name is Salila. She is a Zertonian, as he knows. And they start combining their efforts to try and get off this planet. They think that maybe between the 2 wrecks of our ships, we can salvage it into one big ship, or one workable ship that we can get off this planet on. But again, the things are really tentative between them, and they're bitter rivals, as their planets have been warring for who knows how long. So eventually, though, they're putting their efforts together towards fixing this ship, but in the end everything goes wrong and the ship ends up exploding, and they're like, oh shit, we're never getting off this rock. They end up having a bit of an argument. Salila walks off over a rise, but soon enough comes running back and says, you should see what I found, you should see what I found. So she drags Derek over to the wreckage of another ship they found, but this one seems to be more intact. And as they start exploring it, all of a sudden the wreck starts moving, and this ship transforms into none other than Jetfire, one of my favorite Transformers. And he's like, how long have I been here? Where am I? What's happening? What year is it? You know, that sort of thing. And they're like, I don't know, we just found you. And so he starts looking at his body and goes, oh my god, look at all this wind scouring. Like, I've been out for like millions of years. So he immediately says, I gotta get to Cybertron, transforms into jet mode and blasts off into the sky. So the two of them are just kind of like, what the hell are we gonna do now? And that's kind of where things end off in this first issue. So, and then we all know how things unfolded from there, and the point that they're at the end of issue 6, which I reviewed last month. So Void Rivals finally had the number 1. Next up, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this is the biggest batch, the biggest part of this batch that we have. There's 4 issues here. First up are issues 7 and 8 of the Saturday Morning Adventures series, or should I say, excuse me, the second Saturday Morning Adventures Turtles issues, because they had a series of 4 originally, and then they redid it, and they've done another 8 as a second series. So in issue 7, Shredder has approached this legendary guy whose family has been making swords for a long time, and he wants to use the metal in that meteorite that he found to forge the Forever Sword, which he's going to use as this incredible weapon. And the guy's like, yeah, you know what, we could come to an agreement and a price, and I could make you this sword, but the problem is we don't have the material to use for the hilt of the sword. And Shredder's like, oh, we can get that for you. And the guy's like, they should have some of the material you could take from this some sort of Asian weapons museum exhibit that's going on, and Shredder's like, oh, we can get that for you, but he's like, how do we get in there and steal it without causing a big ruckus? So it just so happens that there's in New York City, in this, not in for real, but there's Saint Nick Con. So basically everybody dresses up as Santa and celebrates Christmas, but it has turned nasty over the years, and it's just basically an excuse for people to dress up like Santa and become hooligans and looters and that sort of thing, right? So the city has officially banned it this year. So Shredder comes up with an idea, and he goes on the airwaves on the TV and says, everybody, Saint Nick Con is canceled, but I'm giving out free Shredder costumes, so you can all dress up as Shredder, and the spirit of Saint Nick Con lives on, sort of thing. And he does all these costumes by Shrang's duplicator device or something like that he uses. So Shredder will have all these costumes that will temporarily be available for all these people to use. So he enacts his plan. Everybody's on board with it. So the Turtles and the authorities basically are tied up, taking care of all these people dressed up as Shredder that are out there making nonsense in the streets, sort of thing. So while all this is going on, Shredder, Bebop, Rocksteady break into the museum and obtain the piece that they want. Eventually the Turtles and the police get Shredder Con under control, and eventually the costumes all disappear when their shelf life is over and everything goes back to normal. But the Turtles are like, that was a weird distraction. What is the Shredder really up to, sort of thing, right? So they know something's up. They just don't know what. In issue 8, things deviated from the whole Shredder storyline, and the issue starts off with the Turtles foiling a scheme by their enemies, 2 of their many enemies, Wingnut and Screwloose, and they turn them aside. But eventually, Og, who's like this little munchkin leprechaun magical genie kind of creature that was in the original cartoon, and he's like, Turtles, I've had enough of your nonsense. I'm taking you to court over breaking the 4th wall, and I don't even know what that means, but basically Og takes them to a courtroom in some sort of, he's magical, right? So he can do weird things. He takes them to this fake court that he trumps up all these ludicrous charges on the Turtles, and they're like, oh my god, is this for real? But they have no way to escape, right? So eventually they do cause enough for problems in the courtroom, and they have their lawyer kind of weasel them out of it. Og gets upset and then takes them and dumps them into Dimension Z. Eventually, though, the Turtles find a way to reverse things on Og, because Og admits that the Turtles are like, why are you doing this to us? And he's like, Og's like, because I get bored and I have nothing else to do. And they're like, oh, well, we just happen to know the cure for boredom. And Og's like, really? Tell me. And the Turtles are like, well, you got to promise to take us back home and not bother us again, and just be a good boy, whatever. And he's like, okay, anything. And then they're like, too late, you agreed to it. We don't have a cure for boredom. There is no cure for boredom. And Og's like, damn yous, Turtles, damn yous. So, and that's the way that one ends. And so I have a feeling in issue 9 next month, we'll be getting back more towards the Shredder line of storytelling. But this was kind of a one-off issue with a kind of one of those villains that you don't see very often. Like, he's only one of those, maybe he only appeared once in the whole show. I don't know. But yeah, he's one of those minor villains that only gets used every so often. Next up, the Halloween special for the Saturday Morning Adventures. And I don't know why this is just happening now, since it's January, not October, but hey, I'll take anything they can throw at me, right? So in this thicker issue, this special, the Turtles basically are watching it's Halloween, the Turtles are watching some scary movies and stuff, when all of a sudden this guy named Crazy Eddie shows up, and the Turtles are like, ugh, another villain, right? Like, dropping in on us and causing all sorts of havoc. And Crazy Eddie is basically like a replica of Freddy Krueger. Like, he wears the same kind of sweater and has a little hat, and he basically communicates with people through their dreams and causes problems that way, sort of thing. So the Turtles are taken on kind of a adventure by Crazy Eddie in this nightmare land where they go on a roller coaster, terrifying roller coaster, and then a pizza monster, and then the spirit of the inventor of the Foot Clan, and so they have to face down all these situations. But with Crazy Eddie is his lawyer, who has to basically spell out to the turtles the reason why Eddie is doing this and whatever and blah blah blah. But the lawyer makes it clear that Eddie, no more puns. He likes his puns, Eddie. So he's like, no more puns, or this situation is all defunct and void and whatever. So in the end, the penchant for punning that Crazy Eddie has is too much for him, and he starts doing it, and he's ultimately defeated by his own penchant for punning and the agreement he had with his lawyer. So his lawyer is like, oh, sorry Eddie, you're done here, and the turtles escape on technicality. Last up, issue 146 of the regular ongoing Turtles series. In this one, it's right after Venus and Donnie and Bob were sucked into that dimensional portal out in the woods that Donnie had set up by the future Bob. So Leo and April, I think it is it Leonardo and April? Yeah, Leonardo and April approach the station in the woods that Donnie set up, this portal thing, and they find future Bob there, but they just think he's regular Bob, and they're like, oh my god, what happened? Look at all the wreckage of this stuff. And April's like, I think Venus and Donnie were sucked into this wormhole thing. So they end up going in, or sorry, they don't end up going in after them, but after they find what happened, the scene then shifts to what's going on inside the wormhole. And so Donnie and Venus and Bob are like trying, like Armagon, the big weird shark nightmare thing, starts communicating with Donnie, because Donnie's kind of his creator by experimenting with all this time and space continuum thing that his power with the weird stones gave him. And Armagon is like, all Donnie gets the sense is that Armagon just is in pain, is not happy, and just wants to die. And so that's why he's so mad at Donnie, and that's why he's causing all these problems. So Donnie and Venus and Bob go chasing after him, and they try to talk to him, and they try to stop this situation from happening. And eventually they're spit out in this land where they meet up with like future Leonardo, who's kind of like old now, and he explains what's happening in the future, how everybody's split apart and everything's weird. And Donnie's like, well, am I still alive in this time? Like, where am I? And Leo's like, yeah, you live out on your own in this tower or whatever. So Donnie rushes to confront old Donnie, but before they can get there, Armagon already gets there. And in the end, what happens? Oh yeah, Leo sacrifices himself by jumping into Armagon's jaws, like future Leo, old man Leo, while Donnie and Venus and Bob are shocked and stand around and watch him perish to save their own skin. And right as the issue is ending, a character from the original Turtles cartoon all those years back when they first started, plus she was in the show here and there, the time traveling female named Renette, or Renee, or whatever her name is, I think it's Renette, her and future Raph and future Lita show up right after Leo sacrifices himself to Armagon. But we don't see what they're up to, we don't see what happens afterwards. It's just they show up, and that's how the issue ends. So obviously they're going to factor into issue 147 somehow, and I can't wait to see how that goes, because everybody loves Renette. Everybody. Next, as usual, we have some Transformers. Only one issue this week, or this month, and it is issue 3 of the new ongoing series by Image. This is a really cool issue. So it opens up with Carly having reached Spike's dad, and he informed her that her dad is dead, that he got killed by the Starscream, the Transformers and stuff. And but before they can really do much, Laserbeak descends on them and starts causing all sorts of havoc. So Spike's dad starts shooting back at him, but soon enough Cliffjumper arrives on the scene and he starts fighting Laserbeak. But Spike's dad makes no link that, you know, these two robots are fighting each other, so maybe there's good ones and bad ones. He just starts firing at both of them and starts taking out Cliffjumper. And they then, Carly and Spike's dad then escape and go back to the bar where all of Mr. Witwicky's Sparkplug's friends all have their guns and stuff. So then they go on the offensive and go seeking out Cliffjumper and Laserbeak to take them out. In the meantime, Starscream is yelling at Soundwave because they don't have enough Energon to fix Teletrain 1, because I'm assuming they want to bring all the rest of the Decepticons back online and get them up and running. And then Soundwave makes the mistake of mentioning Megatron's name, and Starscream flips out and says, "Don't mention his name!" And but then Starscream sees on the radar that there's a ruckus going on, the fight between Laserbeak and Cliffjumper, and says, he gets in touch with Skywarp and says, "Skywarp, I don't have time to deal with this. Go check this out." So Skywarp shows up and finds the humans pounding away at Cliffjumper and whatever, and he's like, "Thanks for helping me out." So then he starts fighting Cliffjumper, but soon enough, Optimus Prime with Spike in the driver's seat comes blasting in on the scene, basically runs Skywarp over, and a bigger, better fight ensues. But still, the humans are so stupid. They just see giant robot aliens and they don't think that some of them might be good, so they start blasting away at everybody. They're blowing Optimus Prime's arm off, they're taking pot shots at Cliffjumper, and Spike sees this and he's like, "No, guys, don't shoot the good guys," and he goes running out into the melee, and the humans, Sparkplug and his friends, are the ones that actually end up shooting Spike right through the guts. And Sparkplug's like, "What have we done?" And Optimus Prime is like, "You dumbass. Get your boy in the truck. I may have a way to save him. Let's go." And that's how the issue ends. Humans, right? Shoot first, ask questions later, right? Just because one giant robot is bad doesn't mean they all are, right? Have we not learned that by now? Last up as usual, G.I. Joe. 2 issues today. One new, one old. The first new one, the new one, is the new series I was talking about that I was excited about, that I had seen in the back of some other comics, but I didn't know when it was coming out. But it has come out in January, and we have the first issue by Image from a new series called Duke. So this one's all about Duke, of course, one of the most popular G.I. Joes. They're kind of working leader, let's say. So the issue starts off with kind of a brief rundown of Duke, you know, how he was top of his class, always follows orders to the letter, is you know, just so loyal, dedicated, whatever, and has turned down every offer of a promotion because he wants to be in there amongst all of the soldiers under his command, and he's just been the model military action man, right? Then we see that the person going over this is General Hawk, and the reason he's talking about Duke's career and stuff like that is because Duke has kind of gone nuts a little bit, has said he has seen a giant alien robot off one of his friends, and we know this is true because this is what happened in issue number 1 of the new Transformers series. When Starscream shot that fighter jet down and the 2 pilots ejected, one of them was Duke, the other one unfortunately met a grisly end when Starscream squashed him like a bug. So that's why Duke has gone crazy. He saw his best friend, one of his best friends, snuffed out in front of him by this giant alien robot, and is living with that guilt. And now he's like, well, what the fuck was that thing, right? Like, and Hawk's not telling him anything, so he's pissed off, he's raging. So he ends up they're like, you know, take some time off, whatever. And Duke's like, yeah, I'll do that. So he immediately, his next move is that he goes to meet with this woman named Dr. Adele Burkhart. She's factored into many G.I. Joe stories over the years, and she's running a meeting, like it's like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting almost, but for like people that have seen aliens and stuff like that. So he gets there and a bunch of people are talking, and it's like, maybe this is a mistake, this is like just a bunch of whack jobs, right? And then Adele Burkhart approaches him, and she's like, yeah, just never mind some of them. come with me. So she takes Duke to her kind of control room and explains to him that she's been keeping tabs on this company called Mars Industries. Destro is the one who runs that. They're a weapons making company, and that's where Cobra gets all their weapons and equipment from. That was always the link between Destro and Cobra. And so they're assuming that this robot that Duke saw came from Mars Industries, but we all know that's not the case. So Duke is like, Adele's like, but this place is heavily guarded, whatever, like it's impossible to get into. And Duke's like, oh, I've gotten into some pretty sticky places, let me handle this one. So he goes and then sneaks into Mars Industries and witnesses all the stuff they're producing, and he's convinced this is where that robot came from. But before he can kind of investigate any further, somebody gets member of Cobra gets the drop on him, and then a big fight ends up happening. He takes on a whole bunch of people, but ultimately it's too much. He gets captured, but Destro's like, we can't kill him, we can't kidnap him, just let him go. You know, if he squeals on people and tells them we're building giant transforming robots, who's gonna believe him anyways, right? So they let Duke go. So Duke immediately goes back to talk to Adele Burkhart, but when he goes to her place, he finds that somebody had been there in the meantime and basically gunned down the whole room full of people that were having that meeting, including Adele Burkhart. She's still alive, but she's slowly dying, and she's like, I don't know, it was one man who flew in from Australia because he wanted to talk to me about some stuff, and he took all of my research. And she said, all of my research except for this. So she gives him, I think, her phone or something like that with some information on it. But right after that, the police arrive, and he's like, oh shit, I gotta go. And he escapes with them all shooting after him, and plans on tracking down this person that came and did that to Adele and all those other people. Then the scene flashes to G.I. Joe Command having a discussion that, you know, Duke is determined to see whatever this situation is through to the end. We're not going to find him if he wants to stay hidden, so we're going to have to bring in the best of the best to catch him. So right at the end of the issue, we see Rock and Roll and Stalker, I believe it was, contacted to come in and put on the hunt for Duke sort of thing. So I hate it when they turn on their own, and Duke you know, Joe's stalking Joe's. It's just not right. That's bad guy shit right there. But anyways, last up, I found a back issue for my G.I. Joe series, my original one from the 80s. And I've got most of the issues. There's just a handful of them right at the end of the run that I'm really having a hard time finding. And when I do find them, they're pretty expensive. I guess what happened with that original G.I. Joe comic series is that at the end of the series, a lot of people had lost interest and it wasn't selling that well. So they didn't make as many copies of the later part of the run than they did at the start, in the middle. So there's a lot less of them out there to begin with, so they're kind of hard to find. So I found one at a decent price, so I jumped on it. All the other ones I've looked at are all expensive, so I'm just gonna keep my eyes on, even if I get a shitty copy that's tattered and whatever, I just want it so that I can read it and throw it in my bin, right? So I'm gonna keep trying to pick away at them, but for now I was only able to find one at a reasonable price, and it is issue 140. And as you can see, it's one of the issues that combines G.I. Joe and Transformers. So at the start of this issue, Megatron, Generation 2 Megatron, is going with Cobra Commander and some of Cobra's troops to Canada, where Megatron unveils the Ark, and I think it might be, is it Adele Burkhart in this one too? But there's a female scientist, I think that it's her, who's like, oh my god, look at that thing, and look at the technology it has, blah 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 blah. So they're all excited. So Megatron and Cobra are able to lift the Ark with a bunch of helicopters, and they're flying then to a town called Millville in the middle of the United States, which is kind of a deserted town where Cobra has kind of made their base of operations. And this is where they're bringing the Ark. This is where Megatron commands everybody to unload it. I don't know what exactly the relationship is, what each side is getting out of it, but Cobra and Megatron are working in tandem to make this happen, sort of thing. And in the meantime, Destro and Baroness are hang gliding into Transcarpathia to Destro's castle, which Cobra Commander kind of took over, and they end up infiltrating it, and thanks to one of the Dreadnoks posing as Cobra Commander, are able to get the drop on all the troops in the castle and basically take it back over, because it is Destro's to begin with. So that's happening as well. And then at the end of the issue, we see the Joes mobilize and start a little convoy to infiltrate Millville, because they are after Scarlet, who Cobra has in their possession as a prisoner right now, and they want to get her back. And as they move into Millville, we also see that Dr. Mindbender, who was in a suspension tank or something like that, in almost in like hibernation or whatever. I think he's a clone. I think he's a clone of the original Dr. Mindbender. His capsule ends up getting broken, and he comes back to life and sees this relationship, this partnership between Cobra Commander and Megatron as something quite intriguing. Even though he's really pissed at Cobra Commander for doing him wrong, he sees this new situation as a little more important than any animosities. Those could be put on the back burner while he gets his hands in on whatever's going on between those two egomaniacs. And that's the way the issue ends. So G.I. Joe and Transformers together, it's been happening for a long time, ever since the original comic series in the 80s. They did a 4-part miniseries on G.I. Joe versus Transformers, so it's always been a thing. It just makes me wonder why we haven't yet had a live-action movie featuring the Joes and the Transformers all together. It's got to happen, right? I mean, we had AVP. Why not the Joes and the Transformers? Make it happen. Meow.